It's time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by PSE Archery,
Buck Baits,
Better the Hunt,
Rebel 6 Rubs and Seasonings,
Easy Cut,
Lim Walker Game Calls,
Hunter's Blend Coffee,
Packer Max,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Scent Blocker,
Scent Lock,
Copper John,
and Stanislawski Release Aids. Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal podcast, everybody. I'm host Mike Adams, sitting in UNJ Cabin North and Danny's in Cabin South. We're still social distancing in this crazy COVID world. So hopefully everybody's had a good weekend. It's warm here in Michigan. The sun's out. It's been shining all week, and I've been outside all weekend. How about you, Dan?
Oh, man, I tell you what, the last couple of days have been pretty amazing. Taking my walks and everything over at the park, doing some yard work. It's been a real good couple of days, compared to earlier in the week. It was a little...
Yeah, life is good, and we're getting ready for turkey season. Danny and I got our trip planned, and we'll be heading out here in about 2 weeks, so...
Right, exactly.
I'm excited about that.
It's one of those things. It's May, so let's get un-COVID and move on.
That's right. Well, go ahead and let's tell the good people out there what they can save some money on this week, Danny.
Absolutely. There's nothing better than supporting the supporters that help us. And going out there, we talked to them last week, folks. Rebel 6 Rubs. Go to rebel6rubs.com. Great stuff. We had 2 people that were listening last week, ordered that night, and they had it in a couple of days. So if you go over to rebel6rubs.com, you use the promo code NorthJournal, you'll get 20% off your order when you check out. And then from there, you head on over to Buck Baits. Buck Baits, great supporter of Up North Journal. Go over there to buckbaits.com. Check out the lineup of stuff. We're starting to warm up, getting ready for hunting season. It's not that far off once you think about it. And if you use the promo code Up North Journal, you get 20% off your order there. And then from there, our good friends at Hunter's Blend Coffee, huntersblendcoffee.com. Mike's probably drinking it right now.
You know it.
You go over there, capital UNJ, you'll get 10% off your order. Last but not least, guys and gals, you want to take that trip of a lifetime and you really want to just think about trading for it maybe? Slay down at Trips for Trade, trips with the number 4trade.com. If you use the promo code UpNorth20, you'll get 20% off your membership. Brings it down to about $100 for the year, and then you can go in there and start trading trips for anything you want.
Yeah, vacations, sporting events, hunting trips, all kinds of good stuff.
Absolutely.
And yes, I do. I do have my Hunter's Blend coffee sitting here with me today.
Okay, you do have it.
All right, well, let's just get to it.
You know what? Let's get to it because when you have a Bassmaster Pro Elite Series gentleman that's going to be on the show, you got to get to him.
That's right. So we got none other than the Bassmaster Elite Series, Bill Lowen, all the way from Indiana, Brookville, Indiana. Bill, what is going on today?
Oh, man, just sitting around the house, trying to stay, I guess, social distancing. The weather was a little off today, so we didn't do any turkey hunting or any fishing. So looking forward to the rest of the week to maybe get some more turkey hunting done and maybe go fishing. A
little turkey hunting. So the guys that are doing the bass fishing love hunting as well. We talked to a gentleman last night, actually, here in Michigan, and he said he'd rather be deer hunting than bass fishing at times. Not all the time, but, at this time of the year, you're out doing some turkey hunting. And I saw on your Facebook page, didn't you take one of your kids out and were successful?
Yeah, I got 2 kids, and we've been hunting them pretty hard. My son actually got his first bird during youth season, and my daughter, she's been struggling a little bit. She's been shooting a little high. She's been missing some birds. But like I said, we've been chasing them really hard. Typically with our schedule for the elites, we miss turkey season. For the last 4, 5, 6 years, I've typically only got about 1 day of turkey season, and we were fortunate this year that we're going to be able to hunt the whole turkey season. So it's been a change of pace.
That you guys are, like I said, you're normally fishing right now. With what's going on with the COVID and all this social distancing stuff, before we start the show, you told us that they've actually canceled tournament season, or at least up till right now, right?
Yeah, well, here in Indiana, they've pulled all the tournament permits, and we haven't been able to have any tournament events. And Bass has rescheduled our events, and hopefully looks like we're going to be getting started next month, and hopefully we'll be able to finish out the season.
All right. Well,
that's good. At least you got some sight in a sight window that you're looking forward to of next month. And I got to ask you, what going from a flooring contractor that you used to be into a full-time professional fisherman, how did you get your passion for it? Where did it get burned into you that that's what you're going to do?
Well, my dad was a tournament fisherman when I was younger, not on the professional level, but, on that local level. So I got to go with him, during practices and things like that. And I guess, he kind of, introduced me to hunting and the outdoors and all that. So if there was anyone that was responsible for, getting me started and all that, it's definitely him. And then as I got older, 15, 16, 17, 18, he kind of got out of the tournament scene, and I kind of just picked up where he left off. So I've always had that. I don't know if I always had that dream that I was going to be a professional angler, but I always had that dream to fish the Bassmaster Classic. And I always say that I can remember standing on the banks of the Ohio River saying that I wanted to be like Denny Brower someday, but if anybody's responsible for me being, with my love for the outdoors, definitely my father.
So following in Dad's footsteps, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long did you've been a pro fisherman fishing full time for 10 years, but how long did it get you to the status to that elite series to climb that ladder to say, hey, you've arrived?
I don't know when you would actually say like, hey, I've arrived. You know what I mean? I still feel like, I don't know how to say this. Like, I'm not a professional angler. You know what I mean? I just still feel like I'm one of the guys. But at the end of the day, yeah, I am a professional angler. And if I had to say, like, how many years was it on the tour that I felt like, hey, I feel like I'm kind of established and, we can definitely make a career of this. I guess it was probably 3 or 4 years into the deal that, I was starting to do good, make a name for myself, and things just kind of fell into place. So it wasn't like as soon as you show up on the Elite Series that you feel like, you're going to be there forever and you've made a name for yourself. It's definitely a lot of hard work just to get there. And then once you get there, the work gets even harder to be able to stay there. It's definitely the hardest job that I've ever had. Not so much physically, but mentally, you know what I mean? Fishing is a mental game. Some days you catch them really good and you're on top of the world, and the next day you don't catch them and you're mad at the world. You know what I mean? So it's without a doubt, you mentioned that, I was a flooring contractor until I started this full time. And without a doubt, this is definitely the hardest job I've ever had, to make a living at.
I had a buddy of mine that I was talking with earlier today, this morning, actually one of the guys that I hunt with, and told him we were going to be talking with you. We hunt up in northern Michigan, up near Alpena, and that's where Thunder Bay is. It was my understanding that the Bassmasters held a tournament up there in Thunder Bay 2 different years in a row. Were you ever up there fishing that? Were you on the circuit at that time?
Do you remember what years those would have been?
I'm not familiar with it. I really don't know. I just know he said
Thunder Bay for some reason is not ringing a bell to me, so I would assume that I probably wasn't there.
Okay, all right, yeah, it's just it's pretty rough waters up there, and it can get treacherous at times. And he said if you were up there, he wanted to know what you thought about it, fishing other places.
Gotcha.
But speaking of that, fishing different places, what's your favorite lake that you've been to to fish in the tournament?
That's probably one of the biggest questions I get asked all the time, and look, everywhere that they take us is typically a really good fishery. It's full of fish. And it's not a matter if you're going to catch them or not. It's a matter of, are they going to be big enough to compete in the event? Mm-hmm. I grew up here on the Ohio River where the fishing is, I call it the armpit of the world. The fishing is not good at all. And when people ask me, where's my favorite place to fish, I always say the Ohio River. And they look at me like I got 2 heads. But for me, it's where I grew up. It's where I learned how to fish, where I learned how to fish shallow water like I do all the time. But 2, I love the challenge of the river. There'll be days when, I'm a professional angler. This is what I do to make my living. There'll be days when I go to the Ohio River and fish all day long and still don't get a bite. So for me, it's all about that challenge and trying to figure that out. And like I said, that's where I grew up. So that's probably, if I had to pick one, that would be my favorite place to fish.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask the next question is going to be, what's your least favorite?
Oh, what's my least favorite?
One that maybe presents a problem for you.
I don't think I have a least favorite.
Okay.
Events or lakes that I tend to struggle with are those lakes where what we call slugfest, when the guys are weighing in 25, 26, 27, 28, 30-pound bags of bass.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I tend to struggle. Where I grew up here in Indiana and Ohio, we just didn't have those big giant fish. I've made a career out of being very consistent in cashing checks by catching limits of bass.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to those big slugfest deals, I tend to struggle, because I feel like I'm still trying to figure out how to get over that hump to catch those 5, 6, 7-pound fish. Where the guys that live down south, that's what they grew up doing. You know what I mean? So if I just had to say, I don't necessarily have a lake that I don't like, but if I had a time frame that I didn't like, it would be that slugfest time of the year on those, lakes like, let's just use Lake Fork, for example. You go down there and if you don't have 26, 27, 28 pounds, you're probably not going to be in contention. And those, for me, seem to be the events I struggle in.
Well, we looked through some of the photos that you sent up to us to use, and I want to put up some from the Bassmaster 50th. Being that it was the 50th anniversary of that, what was it like being part of that event? I mean, that's got to be a little extra special.
Well, anytime that you're part of a Bassmaster Classic, it's something truly special. With that being the biggest platform or the biggest stage for bass fishing, but being part of that 50th anniversary, knowing the history that has led up to that event, to be part of that is something that, it's really, truly hard to put into words. There's guys that fish, and their dream is to fish the Bassmaster Classic. And there's so many people out there that are probably not ever going to be able to walk across that stage. So for me to be able to put it in words, it's really hard to describe. I
thought it was pretty cool that, they hook your boat to a trailer to a truck and they pull you out across that stage. I saw some of the photos. And the crowd's all, getting all pumped up and everything. But, that alone, but then when you got that morning takeoff, and everybody's out there and you guys are jetting out there, and you're part of that classic, and then to come back for the weigh-in. I mean, it's just got to be something like, I don't know, almost like a World Series.
It is, and it's really overwhelming, and it's something that I never take for granted, just because I know how prestigious it is to be there and be involved with that event. It's just like I said before, it's something that until you get to experience it, you can't. It's hard to put into words.
Where was the 50th at? Where was that located for the 50th?
It was at Lake Guntersville in Birmingham, Alabama.
Roll Tide.
Oh, Lord. Oh, boy.
You knew I was going to do that, Danny. I'm sorry. It's like, go ahead and ask that question.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm up here in Michigan, but I'm from Alabama originally. So, but Guntersville Lake, that area over there is just simply beautiful. It's scenery is
absolutely
unbelievable. But I tell you what, we're bumping up here on our first break. Let's go ahead. We'll take our break. When we come back, we want to dive a little bit into maybe some of the equipment that you're using and talk about that.
All right, sounds good.
All right, we're going to step outside and we'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has reinvented the way you buy bows.
From now on, you can make the most educated decision possible
by basing your bow choice specifically on your shooting needs and goals.
All you need to do is ask yourself, what kind of shooter am I? What do I want to achieve?
PSE will help find the right category for you.
So, what kind of shooter are you?
Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back. Second segment, talking with Bill Lowen from the Bassmaster Elite Series, talking a little bit about bass fishing. Might throw a little hunting in, talking about some equipment from Yamaha, all stuff, good outdoor stuff right now, especially when we're talking in this COVID time that we're dealing with and social distancing. We can still get outdoors. So
absolutely, and you know what? And the reason why we got Bill on is for the main is to talk Yamaha Marine. Talking about Yamaha Marine and how you got involved with them and getting them on the boat. And then obviously because you're into waterfowl and that, I think you probably use Yamaha a little bit more than just the fishing. You use it for the waterfowl as well, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so take us through what you have for Yamaha Marine on your boats.
Well, on my tournament boat, on my X21 from Express Boats, I'm running the 250 Yamaha SHO. that I've run. Well, it was HPDI before the show, but been running that ever since my professional career. And then on my waterfowl boat is a 20 DDP Express as well, and it has a 115 Yamaha SHO on it. And to give you just a little bit of history on me with Yamaha, like I said, I've been running Yamaha ever since I started day one on the Bassmaster Elite Series, and that was in 2006. And I ran Yamahas like 3 years prior to becoming a professional angler, okay? Not only on my bass boats, but also on my waterfowl boats. And just a testament to the reliability of that engine. Look, engines are going to have issues. It's no different than a car or a truck or whatever. But I'm going on about 18 years of running Yamaha outboards on my professional boat and my waterfowl boat, and I have never had a single mechanical issue that has left me stranded on the water. Unless I do it myself, like wipe a gear case out or bend a prop shaft, but still, I've never had an issue that has left me stranded on the water. And the only thing that I can even remember having to repair on my Yamahas on my waterfowl boats is I had to put a trim pump in one time. So going on 18 years without any mechanical issues, that there in itself tells you absolutely how reliable Yamaha products can be.
Well, especially when what you're doing in the morning launch, when you guys you take off, it's like NASCAR dropping the green flag. You guys are gone. And
absolutely.
To get to that hole and get to the next hole, to the next one, and make your rounds, you've got to have something that's reliable.
Well, there's so many things that happen on the water that we have no control over, with weather and water conditions and things like that. I definitely don't want to worry about once I leave the dock, am I going to be able to get back? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So simply by the reliability that I've experienced over the last 18 years, I never have a concern. You know what I mean? I go and do my job, and I know that when it's time to come back, unless I do something stupid and drive it aground or, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I know I'm going to get back to the dock.
Well, and that's important too, especially if you're trying to hit that last hole right before time's up, and you got to make way in, and you got to be back.
Right, absolutely.
You're not worrying about hitting it.
Sometimes, some of our events, you may be making an hour or 2 hour runs one way. You know what I mean? And to like I said, to not be able to worry about the reliability of your outboard is, it's something that I don't have to worry about.
Well, you don't need to be 2 hours up the water, and all of a sudden your engine dies.
Absolutely.
It's a long way back if you need a ride.
I always keep talking about, the waterfowl side of it as well. I mean, so many times, I hunting on the Great Lakes, Lake Erie, and places like that, or here on the Ohio River where it may be flooded and lots of current, and typically it's always below freezing when you're out there. I mean, there's just times when you can't worry about the reliability, and if there's anything to be said, that's why I run Yamaha for sure, without a doubt.
When you talk Yamaha and Yamaha, do we? You're looking at the 300, the 250, the 225 in this category. Is there a specific reason why you would select one over the other, or does that have to? How would you go about saying, hey, I'd rather have a 250 over a 225, or a 300 over a 250? How does that play into your mind when you're deciding?
Well, in the Bassmaster Elites, they put a horsepower restriction on us. So the maximum horsepower that we can run is a 250 horsepower. So that's why I run the 250 show. And typically what you want to do is you want to have your boat rated for the highest horsepower rating that you can have, so you can get the top performance out of your boat. Like I said, I'm running an aluminum boat from Express, which is a 21-footer, an X21, which is rated for a 250, and that's why I run the 250 show. So when we talk about why do you select an engine for your boat, you know what I mean? Typically, you always want to try to put the maximum horsepower that is rated for that boat, so you're not underpowered. You know what I mean? Like if I took that 20-foot Express DDP that I waterfowl hunt out of, and maybe I put a 50 or a 60 horse on it, it'll still perform. But if you load it down and you maybe get in some situations where you need that extra power and you're underpowered, that's typically not a good situation. One, you could get yourself in some trouble, and two, kind of frustrating when you feel like you're underpowered. So if I had to give a tip there on why, when you're selecting a motor, try to always outfit that boat with the highest horsepower that it's rated for.
Oh, cool. That's always good to know. And when you do maintenance on these things, obviously you can, if you're really inclined to do it yourself or have it done, overall maintenance of working on these things or getting them taken care of, easy to do with Yamaha?
Absolutely. You always hear us stressing about how important maintenance is. I mean, if you don't do your maintenance, silly things can break that should never happen. You know what I mean? So, like you said, if you're a guy that's mechanically inclined to be able to change the lower unit in your gear on your gear case, or give your 4-stroke SHO an oil change, it is so simple. And Yamaha has oil change kits that supplies you with everything you need to do that, that oil change or that service on that motor. So they make it very, very simple. And if you're that guy that doesn't feel like you can handle that, simply just take it to your Yamaha dealer and let them take care of it for you. But either way, Yamaha makes it so easy to be able to service your engine if you feel like you're capable of doing that.
In today's world, that's unheard of almost with vehicles now. You have to take them in to have almost anything done to them, even change a headlight. So
right,
that's
exactly.
good to hear that we've got, modern equipment that you can actually still work on yourself.
Right. Now, once it gets past that oil change stuff and all that, it's out of my hands.
Right. Exactly. Speaking of that, obviously being in Indiana, we and up here in Michigan, we've got a wintertime season. These motors themselves, do you need to, obviously with the cold, winterizing them, that in doing so, easy to do?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, like I said, Yamaha makes it very simple. And once again, if you don't feel like you can handle that, run it by your local dealer. I use Weeda Marine over here in Kentucky. If I have some stuff that typically I don't feel like I can handle. But, definitely, you brought up a good point that, if you're not going to be using your boat during the wintertime and it's going to be sitting around for long periods of time, it's very important to, winterize that boat, add stabilizer to your fuel and things like that. So when the next season rolls around, you're not sitting there at the dock wondering what the heck's wrong. You know what I mean? So, there's maintenance that's required on your engine for a reason. And if you don't do that or don't do the proper things that you're supposed to do, you can find yourself at the dock with the sad face.
That's not a good thing, especially if you're not good at all.
Well, I tell you what, Danny, why don't we go ahead and we take a break. We come back. Right. We'll extend the next segment just a little bit further here, but we're about 3 or 4 minutes ahead of schedule here. But we're going to take a step outside. We come back. We'll continue the conversation because actually you're wearing something that I want to ask you about. You got something on there, so we'll talk about that when we come back. We're going to step outside. We'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has always dominated the speed category. Now, the most revolutionary cam system ever to hit the market has perfected the shooting experience. Introducing PSE's Evolve Cam System, featuring extremely high let-off capabilities and the smoothest draw cycle in history. No other cam system has ever delivered this level of total comfort and total control. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Welcome back. Third segment of the show. Right before we went to break, I made reference to something you're wearing, and I know Danny and I are part of the Mossy Oak Pro staff. We're on the gamekeeper staff up here in the northern area, but I noticed you're wearing Mossy Oak Elements, and you're on part of the Mossy Oak Fishing staff. Is that right?
Yes, sir, I am. Mm-hmm.
So how did they start getting involved with the fishing side? I mean, is that really starting to take off now? I've seen a little bit of it. I haven't, been exposed to a lot of it, but talk about that just a little bit and how you got involved with them.
Well, over the last few years, there's been a big emphasis put on, skin cancer and protecting yourself from the sun and things like that. And like you said, I'm wearing a Mossy Oak Elements right now in the Elements pattern, and it's a Drake Performance Fishing T-shirt. I'm actually partnered up with, Drake waterfowl systems and things like that naturally because, I'm a huge waterfowl hunter. And Mossy Oak, has always been a partner with Drake. Mm-hmm. And, now with all this new, like the performance fishing gear where we're wearing things that protect our face and our hands and, our sun shirts. And as you can see, this one I got on here actually has a hood on it, a sun hood, to help get you protected when you're on the water. But, we spend so much time out there on the water that you got to protect yourself from the sun, use sunblock and things like that. But, I think I got involved with Mossy Oak, which was cool for me because I can remember as a kid growing up, always watching their commercials where their commercials were always geared to, passing it on, teaching that next generation. And that's what I get a big thrill out of doing. I look at it as, when I was a kid growing up, somebody always took time out of their schedule to, teach me hunting, fishing, whether it was my father or my uncles or friends, whatever that may have been. And had they not done that, you and I wouldn't be, talking on here for sure today. So I always try to give back. And for me, it was really cool to become part of the Mossy Oak Fishing Team because, as a child growing up, I always used to watch that. And there's nothing more exciting for me than to be able to teach something to somebody that doesn't know, because I think a lot of times we take for granted as a professional angler or, someone that has a lot of experience in the outdoors that we just take for granted that people should know these things and they don't,
Right.
You know what I mean? So for us as ambassadors for the sport to be able to pass it on to the next generation, to me, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Danny and I, we've done seminars, at Cabela's and Bass Pro, all the different stores and things. It's good to talk with people and share stories and tips and all that kind of stuff. But I think the thing, and I can speak for Danny as well, because I know he holds it dear to his heart as well. But when you get a youngster and you show them how to run a turkey call, or you help them pick out their first camo outfit, there's just something really special about helping these youngsters learn about the outdoors, whether it's hunting or fishing. It's just
right,
passing
absolutely.
it on.
And with today's technology, it's so easy just to hop on YouTube or whatever and see maybe how to do that. But when you can actually take somebody and a kid especially and put them in the situation, put them on their first turkey, first deer, show them how to set decoys, whatever that may be, that's just something that they'll remember their whole life. You know what I mean? It's a lot different than looking at it on YouTube versus somebody grabbing you by your hand and taking you out there and showing you truly how to do it.
Well, it's taking taking time away from yourself and giving of yourself and giving that time to somebody
Absolutely.
else. And that means a lot. So, yeah, I just noticed the shirt and I wanted to make reference to it that, we're all out there doing the same thing. So, Danny, you said you had a couple questions?
Yeah, we got a couple of questions. First thing I want to do is last segment we talked about Yamaha Marine. Anybody interested in checking out the motors themselves can go to YamahaOutboard.com, all one word, and they can check out.
Another cool thing that we could bring up real quick since you're doing that is, this year Yamaha put a program in place for tournament anglers called Power Pay. And that program, what that is, if you have a Yamaha outboard that is 5 years or newer, you automatically, all you have to do is go to the website, register for the program. And if you're the highest finishing angler that's running that Yamaha that's registered in an event, you get paid. I mean, you don't even have to win the event. You just have to be the highest finisher that's registered to qualify. And like I said, it doesn't cost you anything to register. Simply go to the website, register, and fish an event, and get paid. It's that simple.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Can't beat that.
Gotta like that.
All right. So you're an elite Bassmaster fisherman. Got a couple questions for you coming from Terry, my brother. First thing is he wants to know, you're coming up to a lake. What do you look at about the lake before you even go on it? You're standing there, whether you're looking at a map or you're looking at something. What's the first thing going through your head? You're looking at a lake.
The very first thing for me, what I want to look at, especially if I go to a new lake, is what time of the year is it? What seasonal pattern should those fish be in? Whether that be spring, winter, summer, fall. That's going to be the first thing that I look for, okay, is determining what stage that those fish should be in. The second thing for me is I'm a shallow water angler. I'm born and raised on the Ohio River. I fish shallow 365 days out of the year, regardless of where I go in the country. And that's kind of how I've made my career doing what I'm doing. So for me, I always try to make the lake fit my style of fishing. Okay, I typically don't do good if I show up. Let's just say I show up at Lake St. Clair and, the dock talk and the fishing reports are all saying 30 foot on a drop shot. Typically for me, if I go out there and try to do that deal, that's when I have my bad events. But if I go to Lake St. Clair and fish my style, now I say I'm a shallow water angler, but to me, shallow water at St. Clair is 6 or 8 feet. You know what I mean? So I always try to make the lake fit my style of fishing versus me trying to fit the style of the lake. And that's what I've done in my whole career, regardless if I'm in New York or Mexico. I try to make the lake fit my style.
I've never heard that before. That's great advice. Stick with what you know and what you're comfortable with.
Well, when you're fishing in your comfort zone, you make better decisions. You know what I mean? You've typically probably have been in that situation one time or another. And when that happens, you know how to make the right adjustments to keep catching fish. When you're out there doing something you don't know how to do and you're not getting any bites, chances are really good that you don't know what to do to start catching fish again. So if you're in your comfort zone, I feel like you make really good choices and you fish the best of your ability.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes great sense.
All right. So make it fish how you want. Fish for your comfort. What kind of electronics you running on the boat? What kind of scanner you running? What kind of equipment you got on that boat? I'm
running Minn Kota, Talon, Humminbird. The whole one boat network.
There you go. Now I'm going to throw this question in because even in hunting with the scouting cameras and your fish finders and everything, what happens if they came back and said no more electronics, old school, fishing pole, motor? Would you enjoy something like that, or do you want the electronics back?
I think if they were to do that, there would be a lot of anglers that would not be very happy. Okay. With that being said, I grew up where with flashers and things like that back in the day, and where you would find you an object on the shore, and make you a triangulation to know how to line the boat up and set the boat up and make that cast. Because back in the day, we didn't have the electronics that we have now. Humminbird with 360 and Mega 360 and the down scans and the side scans and everything that we have now makes it so easy to find pieces of structure and fish that we would never, be able to find had we not had those. But I think it would be cool to see maybe like what would happen if some of that stuff went away. I think safety-wise, I think we should all be running GPSs with plotter trails and things like that to help keep us safe. But it might be cool not to have, the capability to throw a waypoint down where you can just pick the phone up and call your buddy and say, hey, give me some numbers for some rock piles out on Lake Michigan. You know what I mean? So now this would take us back to the old days where you had to go out there and find that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Boy, I think it'd be neat to see how it would all play out, but I would also hate to see it because I know how much I use that stuff and how much you would almost feel handicapped if you didn't have it.
Yeah, we've all become so accustomed to it. Even in the hunting industry, it's we rely on it now.
That's why I had to ask. I just had to ask that question. It's kind of like an old school. Everybody's doing this throwback and old school stuff. So I was like, all right,
absolutely.
So we're in May here, and you've been out fishing. You're going after these bass. What colors? What are you throwing at them? What color are you thinking right about now? And what are you thinking?
Typically right now, depending on where you're at in the country, I know you guys up there are a little bit behind where we are here, but it's springtime. It's April, May. You can always figure that those fish are going to be in that pre-spawn stage, or possibly even some of them are spawning already, depending on what water temperatures are. So right off the bat, seasonal pattern, those fish are going to be shallow. They're going to be staging up. They're going to be putting the feed bag on to get ready to spawn. So all that's kind of going on right now. So with that being said, any of your baits that you have confidence in fishing shallow, if those fish are in that pre-spawn stage, you're going to be wanting to throw crankbaits, rattle baits, jerk baits, swim baits, things like that. And then as those fish progress and move up shallower, you're going to go, start getting into your soft plastics, your tubes, your jigs, your worms, your creature bait style things, all that soft plastics that Strike King makes that I use that, you can go in any store and buy are the things that you're going to want to be using now. Just those baits that you can key on that shallow water. For me, what I like to do this time of the year is go down the bank fishing, try to figure out what stage those fish or how far they've migrated, into the spawn. And as I'm going along fishing, I always visually keep my eyes open, looking for a bed or looking for a fish that's on the bed. Because it's that time of the year. All them fish got one thing on their mind. It's making babies. They want to get up there. They want to spawn. They want to make those nests. And there's no better time than now to, catch a big fish, whether that be a largemouth or a smallmouth. This is probably one of my favorite times of the year.
That's awesome.
If you had somebody that came up to you, we talked about teaching kids, maybe it's somebody that's maybe a little bit older, a teenager or something like that just says, I've never fished before. I'd like to give this a shot. And if you had to just put them on one bait to get out there and try to catch some fish, catch a bass with, what's the one thing you say, okay, you need to go buy this? What would this be?
Well, if I wanted to tell a kid that, the simplest thing for me, for a beginner, is something that they can cast out and wind back, because let's face it, it's hard to learn how to fish a worm or a jig or a tube. It takes a lot of time. Mm-hmm. But if you're that angler that's just starting out, and you got to get you a bait that you can cast and wind, because you don't have to worry about feeling the bite or, was that a bite or wasn't it? So I would have to say some type of crankbait or some type of spinnerbait. If I had to choose a crankbait, it would be a square bill type crankbait. Something that isn't going to get hung up very easy. And that's what a square bill does. Let it come through the rocks good, let it come through the wood good. So for a beginner, that's a big plus to have a square bill crankbait, because because the more experience you get with the bait, the better you're going to be with it. Mm-hmm. And then a spinnerbait is simply you throw it out and you wind it, comes through the cover really well, whether that be grass, rock, wood. And right now, for this time of the year, those two baits would be absolute perfect for a beginner. And like I said, it's simply you can throw them out and wind them in. And to me, those two choices for a beginner would be absolutely perfect.
Set them up for success.
You know what? From the beginner, and if you're getting a little bit under your belt, and you're wanting to get a little bit even more better, and even scratch the brain of Mr. Lowen, you have an instructional trip that you can go on with yourself, don't you?
I set that up a few years ago, and in hopes that I don't never want to be a guide where you had to take somebody out there and put them on fish, right? So what I would tailor that to would be like somebody that wanted to come and learn how to fish a swim jig, okay? Yeah, we might not catch any fish, but you're going to get the whole breakdown of trailers, weights, line size, rod, reel. It's actually, you're going to actually be truly learning something. Like I said, I never wanted to get into a situation where I took people out to catch fish. Hopefully during that lesson or that course, we'll catch them. But what I'm wanting to do is give you the tools and the confidence to be able to, learn a technique or learn something that maybe you don't have any confidence in.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that at all, because, you can go, like you said, go on YouTube, you can watch it, but to actually have somebody standing next to you going, well, kind of do it like this, or tie it like that, or throw it like this, that's invaluable in person.
Right. And I think as anglers, we think that only that new fishermen need that help. And that's not the case, And I'll just use an example that happened to me yesterday. A really good friend of mine that when I was younger, 17, 18 years old, he kind of took me under his wing and really showed me how to pattern fish and break that pattern down. And that's going back 30 years. So I got to fish with him yesterday, and I was catching them on a tube, a 4-inch flipping tube. And, that's one of my favorite baits to use in the springtime. And it was a bait for him that he absolutely hated because he lost so many fish on it, So I got to stand on the boat with him yesterday and basically not teach him how to fish a tube, but show him what I've learned over my years. And it was cool to show it to him, show him why I do what I do, and then for him to catch 8 or 9 fish in a row was pretty cool. Because you think, he's almost 60 years old, and you think being 60, you would know all that. So it was really kind of cool to be able to stand there and show him that, and then watch him catch them. Watch it all go down. It was something kind of cool for me because, like I said, years ago he took me under his wing and showed me how to pattern fish and things like that here on the Ohio River. So it's kind of a cool little deal yesterday.
You talk about patterning fish and learning where they're at and how they work. We got a question here from Terry. He's talking about pre-fishing tournaments and learning where those fish are at. Maybe it's patterning, maybe it's not. But how often do you pre-fish before a tournament to learn where they're at?
Well, for the Bassmaster Elite tournaments, every one of our events goes off limits 30 days prior to every event, okay? Now, once that event's announced, it's completely off limits for us to get information. But up to that 30-day point, we can be on the water. But after that 30-day off limits comes in, we cannot be on the water until 2.5 days before each event. So we get a 2.5 day practice window for each of our events.
That's not a lot of time, it doesn't seem like.
Well, especially not a lot of time if you're on a body of water that you've never been on before.
Right. Well, going into something like that, where do you even begin?
Well, typically for me, like I said, I always look at what seasonal pattern is. I try to study maps and things like that, and I try to look at fishing reports that tell me, like, historically what area of a lake is good. You know what I mean? Because, look, when you show up for 2.5 days, you cannot look at the whole lake. Right. You got to kind of throw a dart at the map and say, this is the area I'm going to concentrate on. And once again, like I said, I try to make the lake fit my style of fishing. You know what I mean? Whether that be running up the river arms of the lake or that shallow type pattern. But for me, it typically is a lot of map studying. It's a lot of, old fishing reports and things like that. And just trying to figure out historically what areas of the lake are good that time of the year.
That's interesting. Looking back at past seasons and what's been going on, older fishing ports. How far back would you look at in something like that?
As far back typically as I can.
Okay.
And a tip I want to give a lot of guys that maybe might be listening is, I think so many times as anglers, just because we caught them there last year during this time, we automatically think we're going to run right back there and catch them again the same way. And you know what? Sometimes that works. But I'm the angler that I want to show up and fish the lake for the conditions that are going on, because typically it's never the same year after year after year. Some days, some years the water's high and flooded or muddy or low and cold. And, typically the conditions are never exactly the same year in and year out. So I always try to show up and fish the conditions that are going on or have been going on, paying a lot of attention to what that lake's been doing leading up to the time that we show up.
Yeah, I was talking with my buddy this morning when I talked to you earlier about Thunder Bay. And right now, the Great Lakes, we're talking 30 inches to 36 inches higher than what they've been in the last, 10, 15, 20 years.
Absolutely.
When you're talking that kind of change in water depth, I got to imagine that just totally really upsets what normally goes on there.
Well, absolutely changes the whole dynamic of the lake, Heck, you just use a grass lake, for example. When you throw 3 foot of water on that stuff, sometimes, it'll kill the grass off where it used to be. You know what I mean? Because now it's, it's got deeper water on it and things like that. But, when you throw 3 foot of water on the Great Lakes, can you imagine? I mean, just think about how much water that is. So it's definitely going to change the dynamics of the lake for sure.
You just mentioned something I never even thought about, but the vegetation alone, how it affects that even, for the following years afterwards, how the way it changes.
Oh, absolutely.
That's got to be huge. I tell you what, let's go ahead and we'll take our last break. We come back. Like I said, we talked a little bit about hunting. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that as well. So let's step outside. We'll take our last break, and we'll be right back after this.
Acceleration is part of PSE's DNA. PSE pioneered the speed movement. Now they've developed the vapor category to help you find the most powerful bows on the market to fit you.
High speed equates to intense power and building the momentum you need to be successful. Are you a vapor shooter? Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back. Last segment of the show. We're talking with Bill Lowen from the Bassmaster Elite Series. Talking Yamaha motors, talking all kinds of good things outdoors. So last segment, if you guys got some questions over on the live stream, throw them at us real quick. We'll get them in as we can. But, we talked a little bit about hunting, and you actually mentioned a little bit about, your waterfowl boat and the motor you have on that. Waterfowl hunting, the reason I've always had a problem because I love to bow hunt, and it always falls at the same time. But for you, I got to imagine that October time frame, you're still fishing at that time. How does that work for a guy like you?
Typically our season starts to wind down somewhere between September and October. So for me, that November, December, January was the time for me to, I guess, reboot. You know what I mean? Right. That's when I would put the rods away and not think about fishing. You know what I mean? And then what happens for me is once that fishing season comes back around, I have that drive and that fire to get back in it. You know what I mean? I just need that little bit of break. And that's what hunting does for me. You know what I mean? And I'm like you. I love to bow hunt as well. I typically bow hunt until waterfowl season starts, and then waterfowl hunt the rest of the year. You know, I think I'd rather waterfowl hunt than do anything. It's just, that's my passion. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that I love. And it's something that I do with the family and the kids and friends. And, you know what I mean? It's just something that we look forward to every single year. And I think this year, you know, with this COVID-19 and everything and pushing the tournament schedule back, and I think we're probably going to end up fishing into the fall. Okay. Not quite sure how far we're going to be into the fall, but I'm thinking we'll probably be fishing during the first week of that November rut and things like that. So
what?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed, but
what?
That being said,
I'm out.
It's my job to fish, and I'm going to go wherever they tell me to go, whenever they tell me to go.
Right.
Well, that's the thing, right? That's your job, so you got to do it.
The November rut, though, man, that'd be hard to give up.
Oh, man.
Hey, let's not talk about it anymore.
Yeah, right. Well, look at waterfowl. You're a fisherman. You're on the water. When it comes to waterfowl, would you prefer to waterfowl on the water, or would you prefer to field hunt?
I would probably prefer on the water versus field hunting, and I've done both and have the equipment to do both, but just something about being on the water. You know, I grew up hunting on the Great Lakes, diver hunting, layout boats, you know, all that stuff. There's just something about being on the water, you know, getting birds to come in, commit, whether that be marshes or big water or, you know, river hunting, whatever that may be. Just something about being in the boat with the dog and breaking ice, and just that's just kind of how I grew up, and that would be my first choice, would be definitely on the water versus the field.
Diver hunting on the Great Lakes, man, that almost scares me, man. I got respect for the big water, but laying down in a boat like that on the big waves, you're a brave man.
Right. Well, once again, like we talked before, you know what I mean? You got to have the trust in your equipment and use a lot of common sense, you know what I mean? And pay attention to weather and, you know, make sure you're equipped to be able to handle the big water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I see so many guys get out there in little boats and things, and I'm just thinking y'all are asking for trouble, you know? I've always ran big waterfowl boats, 20-foot boats, you know, big high sides.
Yeah.
You know, typically 90s and 115s and things like that for horsepower, Yamaha, of course. But just got to really pay attention when you're waterfowl hunting. I mean, things can go bad really, really quick. And, you know, I think a lot of times we get so wrapped up in the hunt and going that, you know, you kind of don't think about things that could happen, you know, really quickly when you're out there on the water.
Well, in November, you know, that time of the year, you know, the Great Lakes can be so treacherous so quick, especially, you know, Lake St. Clair, Lake Erie, you know, they're so shallow, the waves get up on them extremely fast. And you can be caught out there in the middle, and it can be deadly. I mean, we've seen it.
Absolutely. You know, it's no different than being out there in your bass boat. You know, you got to pay attention to the weather all the time. Monitor it before you go and while you're out there. And because like you said, it don't take much for a pop-up thunderstorm to put 4 and 5 foot waves on Lake St. Clair.
Absolutely. Well, you know,
absolutely. You know, that's awesome. That, you know, safety, number one issue, no matter what you do, hunting, fishing, whatever you're out there. Even Charles Byram from Iowa loves those divers as well. But yeah, it's good to hear that always safety first.
Well, you know, looking at the safety issue of that, when you're on the water, whether it be fishing or you're out there, you know, waterfowl hunting, how do you stay in touch with the weather? Are you just using a phone app, or I mean, do you have electronics on the boat where you can actually see stuff coming in?
You know, typically I don't have, you know, weather radios and stuff like that on the boat. You know, nowadays, like you said, with the phones and things like that, it's so easy just to, you know, pay attention, see what's going on. Heck, everybody, you know, typically has a weather alert set up on their deal. So especially, like I said, when we're out on the big waters, you got to monitor that stuff. You know, I listen to the NOAA radio and things like that when we're back at the room or on shore and things like that. You know, but like I said, with the technology today, with the wind apps and things like that, there's really truly no excuse to I shouldn't say this, but not to be caught out there, you know, not knowing what's coming.
Right. Yeah. There's so much technology now that it's available to just about everybody.
Right, absolutely.
The biggest problem I have, I guess, when I'm hunting, where I deer hunt at is, sketchy cell service. Typically, I can get a good cell signal, but I've got to watch, the morning news before I go out just to make sure that nothing's going to catch me by surprise. So just in case.
That's it. So I got to ask you. I'm looking at your Facebook page. How do you get the nickname Turtle?
Well, the gentleman that I was just talking about earlier that kind of took me under his wing and things like that. It always seemed like when we were duck hunting back in the day, and I was supposed to meet him at, let's say, 5 o'clock, and then I'd have other buddies that were going with us, right? They'd always be late, so naturally it would make me late getting to his house, right? So he nicknamed me the Turtle because I was always late, and it was always like I was waiting on my buddies, and they were making me late. So he actually gave me the nickname. But my wife says that I have the nickname for the Turtle because I always stick my neck out for everybody. So I don't know which one it truly is.
Well, to have a good friend like that do stick their neck on the line for you, that's got your back out, that's a good name to have for that reason, I guess.
Right.
Absolutely. Well,
there was a saying that was on your page as well, wasn't there, Dan? That you had mentioned to me earlier.
Well, yeah, looking. It's your
favorite quote.
Yeah, it's your quote that you like. Your favorite quote is "Catch you later."
Right.
Now, does that mean catch you later fish, or what's all of that all about?
It can mean any of those above. You know what I mean? I started doing that. Signing autographs for kids and things like that. Meaning that, hey, I'll catch you later down the road, or maybe catch that fish later, or catch that deer or the duck or whatever that may be. So, I'll just always catch you later.
Okay. All right. Okay. So when we have people on and we interview them, we've always got a couple questions at the end of the show, kind of just fun ones. And it's a couple of real good ones that are really tailored to you, because I know you spend a lot of time on the water, obviously fishing. You're getting up, you're going, you're out on the boat all day long. You gotta have like a favorite snack to have with you. You can't go all day not eating. You gotta have a snack or something with you.
Right.
What is it?
Typically for me, it's I don't have like a favorite snack, but typically for me, it's always typically some type of jerky, big fan of peanuts and cashews and almonds and things like that. Typically for me, I don't like, toting a big meal out on the boat because I don't want to be running up the bank to the woods,
Right.
I'm sure everybody that fishes has had that experience, so it's nothing new that I'm talking about. But, typically for me, it's a lot of water, jerkies, things like that, and lots of nuts, oranges. I like oranges in the boat, and one thing that I like typically carrying the boat that people are going to say, oh my gosh, can't believe you were saying that's bananas. I don't have that myth of bananas or bad luck in the boat. Their bananas help with leg cramps and things like that because we're constantly standing and moving and doing whatever. Typically carry a lot of pickles in the boat for the hydration reason of the pickles. A lot of people don't know that pickles help you stay hydrated.
Absolutely. And potassium.
And like I said, them are probably always the things that are typically in the boat. Unless the wife and kids are with me, then we got everything under the rainbow.
All right. One question. What has been the largest largemouth you have caught, and where was it?
The largest one that I've ever weighed in and put on a scale in an event was in Florida, and it weighed 10.6. Wow. And then I caught one in Florida that was a little over 14 pounds during practice. And California's got a rule. I don't know if they still do, but back then they had a rule. If the fish that you caught was hooked on the outside of the mouth, you had to let that fish go. And I actually caught that fish on a frog, and it was hooked on the outside of the mouth. So had that fish been in an event, I would have unfortunately had to let it go. It was one of the it was definitely the biggest bass I've ever caught to this point. But like I said, the biggest one I ever put on the scale in an event was a 10.6.
Nice. All right, you're a fisherman. You got to have a favorite fishing recipe.
Did you say a favorite fish recipe?
Yep, your favorite fishing recipe. You're going to sit down and have a meal.
Typically for us, it's typically always going to be either walleye or crappie. Typically we, I guess we're just like, bread it, whether you're using cracker crumbs or whatever that may be. We're a big fan of Cajun seasoning around here, Tony Chachere's and things like that. So we always add a lot of that in. So typically if we're not breading that fish with some kind of breading and frying it, we like to bake it as well, with your traditional seasonings and butters and things like that. So to say, do I have a favorite one? Not really. Kind of whip it all up and see what ends up, at the end of the day.
There you go. Well,
and Charles Byram is kind of almost saying no bananas. So he's kind of afraid of that thing. That's funny you said that.
Well, see, I take the bananas with me, so in the morning time I can mess with the other guys that are in the event. You know what I mean? I may throw one on their boat or something, and then they're all spun out and freaked out for the rest of the day.
Putting some bad mojo on them.
Right, absolutely.
Right. Well, when you're traveling to the tournament, you're doing a lot of traveling. You're pulling your gear and your boat behind you, so you spend a lot of time on the road. While you're driving, what are you listening to on the radio?
I typically don't listen to the radio. We camp everywhere we go. I typically drive the RV, and my wife drives the truck and the boat. But typically for me, man, when I'm driving, that's when I do a lot of my thinking and planning and things like that. So I kind of never listen to the radio when I'm on those road trips. Like I said, that's a lot of windshield time, and typically for me, that's when I do all my thinking about events or what's coming up or what we're going to do. Or so for me, that's my time to kind of unwind and think a lot about things or just life in general. So it's typically for me, I don't listen to the radio.
Fair enough. Looking ahead and planning the trip, that's good. Okay. Last question that we want to ask you is, looking back, it could be something that happened here recently. It could be something back even in your childhood. But if you've got an outdoor experience, whether it be hunting or fishing, doesn't matter. Which one really sticks in your mind and why?
Man, I don't know if I probably don't have one that stands out. Just for the simple fact that my whole life revolves around the outdoors, and it always has, whether that be hunting or fishing. And now with, my wife and my kids, it's a lifestyle for us. So to say, do I have a favorite one? There's no way for me to say that because there's been so many.
Yeah.
Not only recently, but in the past, they're just. I think when you're so passionate about something, that they're all great memories, and they're all always going to be. Recently here with my kids starting to hunt. My son's 8 and my daughter's 11. To be able to share this with them and see the things that they're getting to experience, it's really cool. Just makes me remember my childhood when my dad was taking me fishing or deer hunting or duck hunting. It's for my son to kill his first turkey last week and just be as most excited as you could ever see somebody. To my daughter, like I said, she's been struggling and missing some, but for her to say, you know what, Dad, even if I don't get a turkey, we've had some of the most phenomenal hunts that we've had. And to me, that's what it's all about. That's making the memories. I want them when they get older to be able to say, man, do you remember that time? We had all them turkeys and we didn't kill none or just whatever. It's all about making memories. And to me, like I said, none of them stand out because I appreciate all of them. And to me, that's what it's all about.
Each one's a chapter within your life and you're still writing.
Absolutely.
And when you get to take your kids out, my kids, my youngest now will be 19 this summer. And I look back at that stuff and it brings tears to your eyes. You get so emotional when you see those first things happen, first deer, first turkey, what have you. it's powerful stuff to be able to pass it on, and by the grace of God, we've got kids and we're able to pass it on to them, and it is, man, it's truly something special, and that's cool.
Oh, without a doubt. We actually, as you're talking, I'm getting goosebumps and hairs are standing up on my legs, because I can remember what that was like being a kid, and being able to experience that. And, when you see all them emotions come out, for them doing their, catching their first personal best bass or crappie or shooting that turkey. My daughter, not last year, but the year prior to that, she shot a 172-inch whitetail. And for a kid,
that's tremendous.
Where do you go from there?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But to see, my wife was actually hunting my daughter when she killed that deer. And when they called me on the phone and they're all crying, and it's just like, the emotions, of that it's something that I wish every person or child could experience.
It's pulling the trigger or setting that hook or whatever. That's just a quick moment in time. But it's like Danny and I, we tell us to everybody, it's not always about pulling the trigger or like you say, setting the hook or what have you. It's about the journey of getting from A to B and everything that happens in between, and even everything that happens after when you're sitting at the dinner table and able to put that meat on the table and share it with everybody in the family. It's just, there's just something primal about it, but as a father or I'm a grandfather now, being able to do that and share with people, it's special. And you know what? And we should never ever take that for granted.
No, not at all. And, I think it creates a bond, not only with your family, but with your friends,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? That just, it's hard to explain that bond that creates with those experiences and just being together in the outdoors.
Right on. Well, I tell you,
you know what it does. One thing it's very hard to explain to a person is the feeling you get when that happens, and if you don't experience it, you'll never understand it because you can't explain it.
Right.
Yeah, that's so true. I'll tell you what, we're running up here on the end of the show. I want to give you a chance one more time. Where can people find out like what tournaments you're going to be in your school as well? Where would they be able to get in contact with you?
The easiest way is on my Facebook page, on my pro page, BillLowen.com. That's the easiest place to go to see what we're doing. Keep up with us. We do a lot of tips, techniques, things like that on there. So you want to check it out. You want to learn a little bit. Like I said, we're always trying to pass it on or teach that, future generation. Check me out on Facebook.
Yep, and if you want to find out about the Yamaha motor, the Yamaha outboard motors, you can go to YamahaOutboards.com.
Absolutely.
You mentioned also about the prize money, and where can they find out about that?
On the website as well. Just go onto the Yamaha and look at the Power Pay program. And like I said, it doesn't cost you anything to get registered as long as your motor qualifies for that program. And like I said, you don't even have to win the event to get paid. You just have to be the highest finishing qualified, angler that has a registered motor to be eligible for that.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast portion. For those of you on the live stream, hang on just a minute. But for the podcast, we're going to wrap it up. Don't forget next week's Mother's Day. And we pre-recorded a show last night that we're going to air on Mother's Day. So make sure you tune in for that. That's doing a little bit of smallmouth bass fishing on Lake St. Clair. So y'all stay tuned for that. That'll do it for the podcast portion. We'll talk to y'all next week. This episode was brought to you by PSE Archery,
Buck Bait,
Better the Hunt,
Rebel 6 Rubs and Seasonings,
Easy Cut,
Lim Walker Game Calls,
Hunter's Plain Coffee,
Packer Max,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Scent Blocker,
Scent Lock,
Copper John,
and Stanislawski Release Aids.
Thanks for listening, and join us again here next week. Until then, remember, as we always like to say, if you're out on the water or in the woods, shoot straight and be safe until next week on the Up North Journal.